I'm Laura Belmar, the CEO of Mason Bottle, and I'm an outlier.
Hey everybody, welcome to Outlier on Air, the podcast where we interview founders, disruptors, and mavens. As always, I'm your host, Ever Gonzalez. On today's episode, we have Laura Belmar. She is a co-founder and CEO of Mason Bottle. Laura, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks Ever for having me on. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on for a few different reasons. You're building something cool, something different to our audience anyway. But I think that just your story and being in the trenches right now is what's really going to connect with our audience. So again, welcome. We're excited to kind of hear your story.
Thank you.
Let's paint the picture real quick. Where are you calling us from?
We are calling in from Flagstaff, Arizona, so not too far from you.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Flagstaff, obviously, you know, when I think of Flagstaff, I think hot, I think golf courses. What's it like right now as far as the startup scene or being an entrepreneur in that area?
Sure. So we actually live in Sedona, Arizona, to be close to family, which is about 45 minutes to the south. But Flagstaff is a great little mountain town, you know, tons of tourism, obviously, because it's close to the Grand Canyon. But they do have a pretty great startup scene with Northern Arizona University up here. There is a lot of startups that come out of the work at the university. And then also Gore-Tex is here, Teva or Teva, however you prefer, came out of Flagstaff. So there's also some outdoor brands that have grown up here. And we're based out of NACET, which is the Northern Arizona Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, and it's a great co-working and incubator space that's been really helpful for us as we grow the business.
Yeah, I was going to say, being surrounded by other like-minded individuals has helped us and has helped a lot of our listeners. So obviously pros there. Any cons of where you're working from?
No, none at all. I mean, I think the more people you can be around, the better. When we first started the business, we were out in San Francisco, and the entrepreneurial community there is obviously very vibrant.
Sure.
And, you know, it just blew me away how open people were to helping you with your idea, connecting you, sharing what they'd learned. And so we've really appreciated being able to find that niche here in Arizona as well.
So are you, we'll get into this a little bit later, but long term, is this something that you're going to be based out of, you think?
Yeah, you know, we really loved being in San Francisco, and we should definitely hit on the story of how we started the business and what it was like when we lived there. But, you know, it's a very expensive city to live in. And there's just, you know, here in Arizona, we're close to family. And that now that we have the sun is increasingly important. And, you know, there's great hiking, mountain biking, whatever it is you like to do in the outdoors. And so that ranks pretty high on our list, too. It
sounds like you kind of have the best of both worlds, right? With the support for your entrepreneurship type of journey, plus the work-life balance, very, very important. It sounds like you're kind of managing both well right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you can get in a town where you can have a little bit of both, that's ideal. And we've definitely, right now we're living in Sedona and commuting up here to Flagstaff for that community. And it's not a long commute. It's, would be typical if we were in the Bay Area.
What's that commute?
It's about 45 minutes to come up here. So, we may eventually move to Flagstaff full time, but in the meantime, spending 45 minutes in the car to come up and be in a slightly bigger city where we have, the entrepreneurship community, but also family nearby has been a great a great combination.
Nice. Now let's get into the meat of this interview, right? Let's talk about what you're working on. So Mason Bottle, what is it? How does it work?
Sure. So I'll just start from how we came up with the idea. When I was 7 months pregnant, which was about a little over 3 years ago, my husband and I, we were in one of those big box baby stores trying to figure out what we were going to need. And I just sort of had a meltdown. It was very overwhelming to me, the number of products to choose from. And, we were trying to be as minimalist as possible. And so I thought, okay, if we can just come out of here with one thing done, I'll be happy. I know I want a glass bottle. Let's go to that aisle. Let's find one. Let's be done. And there wasn't a single glass bottle in the store. And I just had this sort of thought where I was like, well, geez, why can't we just put a nipple on all of those mason jars that we have left over from our wedding? Uh-huh. And so the more I thought about it, the more we decided that it was worth doing. And when my son was born, we sort of used him as our guinea pig to figure out, the flow and how it would work to make a nipple that would fit on the bottle. And then, of course, silicone sleeves to protect the glass. And so at first it was really just about money, saving money and space, because we were moving to San Francisco and had a tiny apartment. But, then we also realized that it's incredibly useful for milk storage for women who are going back to work and pumping. And the alternative is these plastic, breast milk storage bags, which can only be used once. So they're kind of wasteful and they tend to leak. And so it helped with sustainability just in a lot of ways. And so when I think about where we're at now, adding a second product, which is a convertible cup for toddlers that can take them through sippy stage onto a straw. We've sort of tried to retain that concept of making multi-use products that help parents to reduce expenses, but also, to reuse and recycle along the way.
So not for some reason, like mason jar, they're just cool. Like, I don't know what it is. They're like, I love using them. So not only for the coolness factor, but there are benefits, right, to using these jars, these bottles. Yeah,
that was, mason jars are used for so many things nowadays that it's almost become kind of gimmicky. But when we were in our first Kickstarter, there was an article written about us in Pop Sugar, and I loved the title of the article. It was "The Benefits of a Mason Jar Baby Bottle Will Honestly Shock You." And she just took this real tongue-in-cheek approach of saying, before you write this off as just one more thing that goes on a mason jar, there are legit benefits. And so, when it comes to, being plastic-free and being BPA-free, that's something that's been very important to our consumers. When it comes to, milk storage, not having to store milk in one container and then try and transfer it to the bottle and lose a lot along the way. And then, you upcycle them for baby food, and then later, for toddler cups or for whatever else you use them for before you had kids. So try to make it something that just makes it seamless for people to integrate when they have kids.
Price-wise, plastic bottles versus like the mason jar type of bottles that you're working with?
Sure. So we sell the product two ways. We sell, the fully assembled bottle that comes with the sleeve and the silicone nipple and the cap and the jar and everything for about $18.99, which is not on the low end of the bottle market, but is average for a glass bottle. And what most of our customers do, though, and this was, how I wanted to use the product, is just they DIY their own. So they already have their jars and they come onto our website and they get the nipples and a few caps or sleeves or whatever they want and sort of customize their own bottles. So, you could think about it this way. If you have a mason jar that probably cost you about $1, and then you get a pack of 2 nipples from us for $9.99, you can make, a bottle for about $6 a piece.
So that's not bad.
No, it ends up, that's affordability is one of the things that people say they love about it. And, most moms will get a bunch of jars so that they have a lot for breast milk storage, or maybe they're already on hand. And then, they just get the nipples from us. And, we are manufactured here in the USA, so we're not the cheapest on the market, mm-hmm. but it was just really important to us to be made in the USA. And we just love knowing that the silicone that the factory is using is as pure as it can be. We love knowing that the people who work there are happy. It's a very family-oriented business where everybody's on a first-name basis, and it just has been a real highlight for us to be able to make it here in the USA. So we think it's worth a couple extra bucks, and there's still a way to do it affordably by DIYing your own. So that's kind of the business model that we've ended up with.
When I first came across your story, what you were doing and how you were doing it, very first thought, and I hope this doesn't come across as offensive, because obviously no. we were having you here on the show. I was thinking, yeah, that sounds cool, but that's for like the hippie moms, or these earth-loving type of people. But there's actually like really cool benefits, a lot that you've already talked about. But it's a whole lot different, and your audience, your consumer, your clients, they're not just the hippie type of families. Like, it's all types of families, right? Your audience, speak to us about who they are and where they're from.
Sure. So, I'm a big fan of the phrase that you niche down to scale up. Uh-huh. And so, we started out definitely with our bread and butter customer being, a mom who's very concerned about the environment, and who, has a very specific kind of granola profile. But then, what we found is that through social media, we can target different types of moms and speak to them differently. For example, on Pinterest, we run an ad that goes to women who are Googling, breast milk storage, or we run ads to women who are trying to figure out or searching on Pinterest for, how do they continue to pump once they go back to work. And so one of our blog posts that gives tips on how to do that, and obviously features our product, is going to be shown to them there. So, we can advertise in different ways to different groups. But I've also found that there are just certain things that are universal. For example, we almost never talk about the sustainability or the green aspect of the product mm-hmm. as the primary selling point, because when we run Facebook ads and we test different copy variations, those almost invariably do the worst. The things that do well are things about saving money, saving time, being easy to clean, and those are things that, resonate with all moms. So, it's something that, we just refine the messaging as we try different types of ads on social media and see what people respond to.
Location-wise, is there one area in the country, or actually internationally, that you are strongest in?
Well, so I would say any country that's English speaking tends to have an awareness and a cultural practice of using mason jars. Mm-hmm. So the US for sure, and also Canada, the UK. So we just recently kind of did all of the paperwork to be able to sell into Amazon Canada, and also to sell into Amazon UK, which will give us access to all of Europe. And then, New Zealand and Australia and places like that, we get inquiries from a lot as well.
I want to get into like your Kickstarter campaign, some of the challenges. I know your husband is part of the company, like all those different details, but let's kind of catch up the audience to this point. What were you doing before you started this? I mean, do you have a history of entrepreneurship?
Yes and no. So my first job out of college, I taught for Teach for America in Phoenix. And, that was really that experience really taught me a lot about management and motivation and, organization. And I would say, looking back at the things we do now, so much of it has overlapped with skill sets that I had to learn in the classroom. And, just to give you one example, when I was in Teach for America, we would set goals with our students. And I taught 8th grade, and it was not uncommon for my students to be reading on a 4th grade level. And so we would sit down at the beginning of the year and say, okay, you're reading on a 4th grade level. We need to get to an 8th grade level at the end of the year, and you can absolutely do this. And we would set that goal and talk about how we were going to achieve it. And I think at first it felt a little far-fetched, but what I realized is that I was capable of getting the kids there, and the kids were certainly capable of getting there. And if you don't set that goal, then you definitely have no chance of achieving it. So it was one of those things where having to set goals, even if they felt outrageous at first, you realize that unless you commit to at least trying to do it, you'll never come close. So it started out in the classroom, and then also worked, after teaching for about 5 years, I also worked for a renewable energy startup here in Arizona. And that was everything from sales to accounting to even, lobbying about solar policy, trying to stay involved. So, that was a really small company, and my husband and I, we were engaged, about to be married by that point, both worked in that business and sort of learned about all the little bits and pieces that we would need in order to start a company of our own. And I have to mention my husband's background too, because he's so integral to the story. He started out as a financial analyst for Ernst & Young. And then after we moved to the U.S., he's from Chile. We met down there, over the time that I was teaching. He really felt like he needed to learn to code in order to really stay competitive in the job market here. So he did a 3-month coding boot camp in San Francisco.
Nice.
And we moved out there when I was 7 months pregnant. So when our son was born, he was still in school, and I was, of course, working basically part-time. And it was, there we were in the most expensive city in the world. But, we quickly, we used, friends and family helped us out, and, we were able to quickly pay that money back as soon as my husband got a job. So it felt a little crazy, but the risk was totally worth it. And my husband he worked at a startup that they exited a few months after he joined, about 6 months after he joined. And then he's also taught coding at actually the same boot camp that he graduated from. So between the two of us, it's really a nice fit, because he knows the financial aspect of things, as a whiz on Excel, can also code, and he also has a great eye for graphic design. And then I like to do the copywriting and the planning and the project management, and so it ends up working out really nicely.
Now, we've had other couples on the show that are working together, right, with their new startup, the highs and lows of all that. And it can be very intense, obviously very difficult sometimes. How do you balance both, right? And on top of that, you have a little one at home as well. So work, marriage, baby, life in general, how does that work for you?
I think one thing that has been really important for us is just to always assume the best about the intentions of the other person. Assume that my husband always has my best interest at heart, and I always have his best interest at heart. And, we just try and keep communication lines open. And, to a certain extent, I like to try and stay out of his lane. But we also, we'll give each other feedback. So I think the communication aspect is something that we just refined over time. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to, I know that this person is putting me first. I'm trying to put them first. And so as long as we commit to that and, think about each other's actions in those terms, we usually can keep things really positive and constructive.
I love that. That's great advice.
It came from my mother, so I give her the credit.
Well, that's perfect, though. I mean, it's so difficult in general, right, to have a startup and then to throw all these other different obstacles in the way. I mean, it sounds like things are going well for you, right? So with your husband as a partner, with the 2 Kickstarter campaigns that you've had that we'll talk here about in just a sec, you're getting press, you're getting the coverage that you need. But it can't all be like sunshine and roses, right, or rainbows or whatever. What are some of the things that you guys are struggling right now as a company? What are some of the roadblocks that you have that you're trying to overcome?
Yeah, I am more than happy to share about that. So with our biggest challenge right now, we're in the midst of our second Kickstarter, and PR has been very tough for us this time around. The first Kickstarter, we did a lot of pitching, and certainly the first 2 weeks were very stressful because we had some interest from journalists, but it takes a while for those articles to hit. And so, this time we tried to really get behind the 8 ball, pitch often and early. And we're about a month into the 2-month campaign, and we haven't had really any PR this time around. And one of our board members has done PR in the Bay Area for almost 20 years now, both, traditional earned media, and then also now he does a lot of, influencer media. And so, I was talking to him last night, and he was like, PR is a formula, and it's pretty straightforward. Your pitch is strong. You've sent a ton. You've got a good open rate. It's just damn near mathematically impossible that you haven't gotten any PR.
Really?
But we haven't. And so, we spent, the rest of that conversation figuring out what other angles we could take. And one of the things that we hit upon is that we really haven't talked about the product much from the mason jar angle. And, this product, it's an all silicone sippy cup. So it's still non-plastic like our glass baby bottles are, but it's unbreakable. And it does a lot of things. It can be used for, you can put food in it, you can put snacks in it, you can also use it, to drink out of. So, we kind of came down to maybe we should go back to the basics, work the mason jar angle. And it's funny because, when I've talked to journalists in the past, they've said anything mason jar, tends to do really well for us across all channels. And so, I think we're going to sort of go back to our original angle that we took with the first Kickstarter and, re-pitch everybody, just conceptualizing the product in a different way. But it's one of those things that just takes, PR takes a lot of perseverance. So we're still rethinking it and just trying to keep after it. But it is tough to get enough eyeballs on a Kickstarter page to get the traffic that you need to convert visitors and, end up with enough money at the end. Huh. So, PR is our big struggle right now.
I love that you're going back to basics, too, with this. So now the first Kickstarter campaign, a success, right? Tell us some of the details there.
Sure. So, we asked for $25,000, which wasn't everything that we needed. It was about half of what we needed, but we felt like if we could get that amount, we'd be able to prove that there was a big enough market, to go ahead and make the rest of the investment ourselves. And, part of it I've already mentioned, our primary strategy was just putting a quality video out there and then pitching for PR and, hoping that we would get the coverage we need. And once we got a couple articles written about us, we took the best one and then we just boosted the heck out of it on Facebook. So, and that was how we drove enough traffic to the Kickstarter page to get to our funding goal.
And so right now for the second one, as of right now, we're the end of July 2017. You said you're about a month into it. You got another month to go. How are you doing now?
Yeah, so we hit $19,000 today. So we're, basically halfway through the campaign and a little less than halfway funded. And, as I look back on it, I think, maybe we could have set our goal a little bit lower because, now we also have just the monthly cash flow that our first product line is bringing in. But I think, we will get there, and we maybe just made it a little more stressful on ourselves than we should have by setting the goal where we did. But right now, we use all the same strategies that we use with the business normally, Google AdWords, to find people who are, already warm leads, already looking for a sippy cup or a straw cup for their child. And then we also are using Facebook ads as well to, generate awareness of the product. And, as you probably know, these types of things are a pretty simple math problem. You can assume a 2 to 5% click-through rate from a advertising, from a post or a video, and then you can assume roughly a 2% conversion rate for people who come to the Kickstarter page. So, that gives you a good idea before you ever get started how many visitors you're going to need, and then in order to get those visitors, how many folks you're going to need to reach with your advertising efforts.
Funding to start the company, was it family, friends, and the Kickstarter stuff, or have you received any capital from outside, whether it's angel or VC?
Mm-hmm. We have never sought capital. We did the Kickstarter in order to prove the concept, and once we were confident that there was a market, we secured a loan from friends and family that were, just working our way on paying back. So it's been, for us, we wanted this to be a family business, and we wanted to grow it at the speed that we felt comfortable growing it at. So after, really researching the way that angel investment or VC investment might change our approach, we felt strongly that we wanted to bootstrap.
I love it. What's this going to look like in 3 years, right? When we have you back on the show, what are we going to be talking about 3 years from now?
Well, we have a lot more products in the pipeline that are, on the sketch pad and also in my head. So I hope we'll be, I think that about every year and a half we're able to launch something, because also, of course, we're growing our family. So I hope by the next time we talk to you that we'll have another kiddo and a few more products. And, we envision this being an e-commerce first business. So we like, using social media to go direct to the consumer. And I think as more and more people shop online, it's just e-commerce is a great way to grow. So that's the strategy that we're pursuing now and for the next, 3 to 5 years.
I like that. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do, right? And especially as your children get older, I'm assuming there are going to be other ideas from just regular family life that you might be able to come up with, because your kids are getting older, doing different things, experiencing different things. I love how it can basically, it might not ever end, right? With the idea part of it.
Sure. I mean, there are things that I want to do for myself also, things that I think my husband and I would use as well. And, a lot of the strategy for our business revolves around, what's the cost per acquisition that we can afford to pay. So when we're when we look at the cost per click on one of our ads, we have to think about what's the lifetime value of that customer. And if we only sell baby bottles, or if we only sell products for, ages 0 to 2, then you can't hold on to your customers for as long as you might like to, and you can't increase that lifetime value. And so that's, one of the big motivations for us to grow the business, is to be able to, offer people more products that are going to serve them, for a longer period of time with their families and, for themselves.
For you personally, what's the biggest single reason for your success? Up until this point, what is the number one thing?
I would say it has to be sort of the number one reason for our success up to this point is the impossible is nothing attitude. I think, I went back to this whenever we were talking about, getting started in teaching and what I learned from the classroom. And I think, if you don't have the mindset that you can do it, then you're never going to do it.
Ooh,
so,
I like that.
it felt very crazy to move to San Francisco and have no income when I was 7 months pregnant. But my husband and I felt very strongly that, we knew where we were headed. And if, you've just got to find a way to make it work. So I think just attitude is the biggest thing that you can do to help yourself succeed.
And you obviously, just our listeners can tell by listening to this episode that obviously you're making it happen, because you seem very upbeat, like, just like everything else in life, especially in startups, right? There's ups and downs, and it sounds like you're well on your way to kind of conquering some of these obstacles and just continuing to push forward. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I mean, it is funny because as we're having this conversation, if I had to say today, if our Kickstarter is going to be a success, if you look at the tangent that we're on right now, or the track that we're on right now, we're not on track to meet our goal, but you have to have the attitude that you will get there and that you're going to get that hockey stick effect if you just, keep after it. So that's how it worked out the first time around. And, we've certainly seen just, the longer you're in business, the longer you stick with it, eventually it starts to pay off. So yeah, attitude helps a ton.
Last question before we start to kind of wrap this up a little bit. What are you the best at? You mentioned your husband with a finance background, now the coding kind of stuff. What are you the best at?
Oh, it would be a lot easier for me to talk about what he's best at, but I think you already covered it pretty well. It is so nice to have someone on your team that really thinks through the logic and the data side of things. And I think what I try to bring to the table and what I try to work on is, I guess the best way to phrase it, what I would like to be the best at is meeting our customers where they are and speaking to them in a way that resonates. So, I was an English teacher and I like to write. I was an English major in college. And so I really enjoy the process of thinking about what stage are our customers at in their lives, what problems are we having, and what are the fewest words that I can use to, articulate, sort of connect with them. We know where you're at, and this is something that can help you meet the needs that you have right now. So I really like the copywriting side of things a lot.
Which is very important, right? I mean, we kind of all need it. We don't all do it very well, but if that's something you like and you enjoy and you're good at it, good for you. Many of us need that talent or expertise, and it sounds like you're, obviously because of your background and the things that you enjoy, you're doing it well. Congratulations.
I mean, I think it's actually a very teachable thing, and
you think so? Copywriting?
Absolutely. It's a lot more about your audience than it is about your writing ability. If you're really keeping in mind who you're talking to, the words are just going to come naturally. There's a great study, and I wish I could remember where it's from, but they would have children write an essay on a topic, and then they would have them write an email to a friend about the same topic. And invariably, the email was so much more clear and convincing. And it's just because, as you're writing that, you're keeping in mind the friend that you're writing it to. Yeah. And so,
that's good. That's really good.
That's the key. Just keep in mind your audience and try and be as clear as you can about who they are and what's important to them. And you'll be able to write good copy.
For those that are listening, they want to connect with you, with the company, right? Follow you on social media. Where can we find you online?
Sure. So we are at Mason Bottle on every channel. And so at Mason Bottle on Facebook, at Mason Bottle on Instagram, at Laura Belmar on LinkedIn, Sebastian Belmar, my husband, also on LinkedIn. So those are probably the easiest ways to connect, and we check those messages every day, and we'll be happy to hear from anybody.
Perfect. So Outliers, you can go to outliermagazine.co. That's outliermagazine.co. First of all, subscribe to our podcast, rate, review it, share with your friends. We have some amazing guests just like Laura that you can learn from. But there we're going to have links to her website, to social media accounts. Feel free to connect her. She's obviously the real deal. She's in the trenches. She's making it happen. And our hats off to you, Laura. You're doing some cool things. We hope to hear from you in the future, and we wish you much success. Congratulations.
Hey. Thanks, Ever. We really enjoy listening to the podcast and have been very inspired by a lot of your other guests. So keep doing the work that you're doing.
I love it. Thank you so much. And Outliers, we'll talk to you tomorrow.